Stress is a normal part of life. In fact, some stress, or eustress, is good for us. I talked about it in one of my recent videos. I'll link the video in the show notes. Eustress occurs when you perceive a challenge as manageable and exciting rather than as a threat. It boosts focus, energy, and performance. Some examples of good stress are exercise within your capacity, learning new skills, or taking on new challenges. Without stress, we don't grow. But there's a difference between stress that helps us adapt and stress that never seems to let up. And that's where cortisol enters the conversation. I'm Sandy, and I'm 56 years old. Over the years, I've learned that many of the symptoms men experience after 50, like fatigue, poor sleep, stubborn weight gain, low motivation, brain fog, and slower recovery, aren't necessarily caused by aging itself. They're often signs that the body has been carrying too much stress for far too long, and as a result, begins to fall out of balance. In this video, I'm talking about a hormone called cortisol as it relates to stress. I'll explain what cortisol is, why we need it, how modern life affects the hormone, signs of cortisol dysregulation, and finally, simple strategies to help regain balance. This channel is called Well Past 50, and it's about aging with intention, without extremes, gimmicks, or borrowed certainty. So what exactly is cortisol? It's the body's primary stress hormone, and we all produce it. Cortisol affects almost every organ and tissue in your body, and lately it has developed a pretty bad reputation. If you spend any time online, you'd think cortisol is responsible for every health problem we're experiencing. Belly fat? Cortisol. Poor sleep? Cortisol. Cravings? Cortisol. Bad hair day? Probably cortisol. The reality is a little more nuanced. Cortisol isn't the enemy. It's actually an essential hormone that helps keep us alive. Cortisol is produced by your adrenal glands, which sit on top of your kidneys. It's part of a family of hormones called glucocorticoids, but you don't need to remember that. What's important is understanding what cortisol does. It helps regulate blood sugar and metabolism. It influences inflammation in the immune system. It plays a role in energy levels, and it helps you respond to physical and emotional stress. It's also one of the reasons you're able to wake up, feel alert, and get moving in the morning. Why do we need cortisol? Cortisol touches almost every system in the body. Without it, life gets very difficult very quickly. So the goal isn't simply to reduce cortisol levels. The goal is to support a healthy cortisol pattern. This pattern is a biological masterpiece that has evolved over millions of years. When in balance, cortisol has a steep peak in the morning. Then as the day progresses, its levels gradually decline. In the evening, another hormone called melatonin kicks in to help us wind down and eventually fall asleep. The daily rise and fall of cortisol and melatonin is guided by your circadian rhythm, your body's internal clock. This internal timing system helps coordinate sleep, energy, hormone production, metabolism, and recovery across a 24-hour cycle. While the master clock resides in the brain, nearly every organ and tissue has its own internal clock as well. Together, these systems rely on cues from your environment to stay aligned. The most influential cue is natural light, particularly in the morning. Meal timing, movement, and social interactions also play their role. For millions of years, humans followed fairly predictable circadian rhythms. They were largely dictated by the natural world. Then we came along and started messing with them. Enter modern life, which often disrupts the body's natural rhythms. Chronic stress, ultra-processed foods, constant stimulation, and exposure to artificial light can interfere with the sleep-wake cycle and contribute to ongoing nervous system activation. One of the biggest issues today is that our sleep-wake cycle has been disrupted. As daylight fades, melatonin naturally rises to prepare the body for sleep. But evening exposure to screens and artificial light can suppress melatonin production and delay the transition into rest. Cortisol remains elevated, melatonin is suppressed, sleep becomes less restorative, and recovery suffers. Artificial light exposure is only one of the many factors influencing our internal rhythms. What we eat, when we eat, how much we move, the time we spend outdoors, our use of caffeine or alcohol, and even aging all affect hormone balance and nervous system regulation. When these rhythms become disrupted, the body can fall out of sync with its environment. Over time, the circadian misalignment has been associated with poor sleep quality, digestive issues, increased weight, mood changes, and more. Let's face it, life is messy. Most of us are navigating work demands, financial pressures, relationship challenges, health concerns, and countless other responsibilities. But as I mentioned, stress isn't inherently bad. It's when stress persists that problems arise. Stress is also cumulative, meaning by the time you hit 50, you're likely carrying a lot. The body doesn't really care where the stress is coming from. It simply responds to the overall load. When the load remains high for too long, cortisol can stay elevated beyond its intended purpose. Then the signs of chronic stress begin to emerge in predictable ways. So what does cortisol dysregulation actually look like? You may feel physically tired, yet mentally unable to switch off, a state described as being wired and tired. Recovery from exercise or a busy day may take longer. Energy feels harder to restore. You may also notice stronger cravings for sugar, caffeine, or comfort foods as your body looks for ways to keep going. This coping strategy can trigger weight gain, mood swings, and digestive issues. If any of these sound familiar, you're not alone. These are common signs that the body's stress and recovery systems are under strain. Now that we know cortisol balance is important, how do we keep a healthy pattern? For me, that means prioritizing these 5 things. Sleep. This one is so important, I'm going to do my next post on it. Natural light. That means getting outside in the morning sunlight and then again in the evening. Nourishment. Eating quality whole foods at predictable intervals and avoiding late night snacking. Movement. Walking more, especially in the forest. And finally, rest. Building genuine recovery days into my week. None of these things are groundbreaking, but together they help regulate my cortisol patterns. When I do these things, I feel less stress. I recover better and I sleep better. These practices also open up the space to pay attention to how I'm actually feeling instead of constantly trying to override the signals my body is sending. If there's one thing I'd like you to take away from this conversation, it's this. Cortisol isn't the enemy. Stress isn't the enemy. The real problem is living under a constant stress load that disrupts healthy cortisol patterns. After 50, it becomes even more important to pay attention to the signals your body is sending, support your internal clock, and respect your recovery. Your future health depends on it. In my next rest and recovery video, we'll talk about one of the most powerful recovery tools available to all of us, and that's sleep. If you want more conversations around fitness, nutrition, mental health, and recovery for men over 50, you're welcome to subscribe. Thanks for being here.